All right, number 5 is our last video in the graphing category, so let's take a look at this. Just like before, we are going to need to fill out this table for our first step. So let's start there. Again, you always want to start by asking yourself, is this in standard form or is it in vertex form? I don't see any parentheses here, and so that's a good indicator that it's in standard form. We're going to have to start here by, my computer will stop fritzing, filling out our table. Fortunately for us, we'll notice that the inputs have already been filled out for us, so that's super nice. We can just plug those into our calculator to get the outputs. So pull out your calculators, pause the video, try it out. I'll give you a minute to do that. All right, if we do that, we should get 0. And let's see, this next one will be 1/2 minus 2. That'll be negative 1.5, I think. Yeah, 1/2 minus 2, yeah. So negative 1.5. 0 will be negative 2. Let me just check this real quick. Yep, negative 1.5 and 0. So those are my numbers. Now, it's okay to have decimals in your graph. It happens sometimes. We just have to estimate where they're at, and 0.5 is not hard to do. My first point is at negative 2, 0. Then negative 1, negative 1.5. So I'm going to go down 1 and then half a box more. Okay. 0, negative 2 will be right there. Another 1.5, and then back up to 0. And my last step is to trace your parabola out here right now. Okay. My axis of symmetry is going to be where my vertex is at. And remember, the vertex is the center point on the table. It's always x equals that number. So my axis of symmetry is going to be x equals 0. If I look at my vertex, it is definitely at the bottom, so that's going to be a minimum. And we can either list that as its point, so 0, negative 2, or we could say y equals negative 2. Both ways work. The transformations that occurred from our parent function, let's look at our equation. A is 1/2. As a decimal, that's going to give me 0.25, and that is definitely less than 1. So if it's less than 1, it's going to be a vertical shrink. Okay. Now this one, I'll notice here that I have like a -2 at the end. That's going to shift, so my C is -2. That's going to shift my graph down 2. Okay, so there was a vertical translation down 2. And again, my A is not negative, so there's no reflection. So there were only 2 transformations in this one, the vertical shrink and the vertical translation down 2. Let's take a look at number 6. This one is kind of special, and I think that's going to be our last graphing one. Perfect. So number 6, we're going to graph using zeros and the vertex. So let's look at this again. This is definitely in standard form. So to find the vertex, I'm going to have to do the whole x equals negative b over 2a equation. So a is, let's write those real quick. A is 1, b is negative 4, and c is negative 5. Okay, so that's going to be negative times negative 4 over 2 times 1. That's going to give me 4 over 2, and I'm running out of room, which is 2. So my x-coordinate is 2. And we don't actually need this table here because we're not going to use it. And then let's find our y-coordinate by plugging that back in. So y is going to be 2 squared minus 4 times 2 minus 5. So that's going to be 4 minus 8, negative 4, minus 5 is negative 9. So our vertex is at that point, 2, negative 9, right there. To find the zeros, we are going to have to factor this. And since a is equal to 1, we can use our little magic x. Remember, for our magic x, at the top, I have a times c, and then b goes down at the bottom. So I'm going to have 1 times negative 5 is just negative 5 at the top, and then negative 4 goes on the bottom. If I think about my factors of 5, 5 is a prime number, so the only numbers I can multiply together to make 5 are 1 times 5. And since I want it to be negative 4, it's going to have to be 1 minus 5. Remember that when we're finding our factors for those two, we have to take the opposites of those two numbers. So my two factors, my two zeros, you can call them, are negative 1 and positive 5. So look at that. Negative 1 would be right there, and then positive 5 would be right there. And now I've got my 3 points and a parabola, and we're done.